Hello and welcome everyone to the Marketplace Discussions podcast. My name is Mahmoud, and with us we have a very special guest today, Utkarsh, who's the CEO of Network Capital, one of the world's largest mentorship platforms that empowers school students and young professionals to build meaningful careers. Before that, Utkarsh worked at Microsoft for 7 years across the US, Europe, and India, leading business development for big bet projects. Thank you very much for being with us, Utkarsh, today. And I'll jump right into it with a question. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey from Microsoft all the way to where you are today.
So I'm a writer and an entrepreneur. I write for Harvard Business Review and have a new book coming out by Penguin, in which you are featured as one of the case studies. And as an entrepreneur, I am the founder and CEO of Network Capital, which you described as one of the world's largest mentorship platform, and the chief marketing officer of Fire.org, which is a blockchain unicorn. Fire acquired a stake in Network Capital last year, and since then I've been, both the CEO of Network Capital and the CMO of Fire. One of my deep interests is to understand why people do what they do and enable them to do their best work. We spend most of our lives in offices, and I think the work must matter beyond the money that it pays. So I said, let's try and see if there is a business here. So I started tinkering around while I was at Microsoft. And then in September 2020, I quit Microsoft to make Network Capital my full-time gig. We first raised funding from Facebook and then had a stake acquisition by the blockchain unicorn. And I consider it a real privilege to be serving my community members all around the world, learning from them. You're a prime example of that. And then collaborating with them to do interesting things.
Yeah, and there are so many things I want to ask you about this. First off, because I see many similarities in our journeys. Very different, of course. They couldn't be farther away from each other, but there's one thing in common there, which is trying to, in a way, seek some sort of, as you said, like meaningful careers, meaningful trajectories. And you talk a lot about tinkering, you talk a lot about trying to know yourself, trying to figure out what you want. And at the same time, you say, don't follow your passion.
Mhm.
So how do you reconcile the two? And how do you, how would you go about, tinkering on the one hand, trusting your gut, maybe trying to figure things out, know more about
Yeah.
yourself and others? So yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
So the title of my second book is Passion Economy and the Side Hustle Revolution. And the first one is The Seductive Illusion of Hard Work. And I talk about passion in both books. And I actively discourage people from following their passion because it's misleading advice. Instead, people should follow their curiosity. In my case, I started out by wanting to become an actor. I've done some Bollywood movies, some Hollywood movies in sidey roles. I have also done a lot of theater. Then I, fell in love with cricket. It's a sport which is very popular in India and some other parts of the world. And I thought I must become a cricketer. And I was actually reasonably good at it. But then, my passions changed and I ended up studying engineering, philosophy like yourself, business, and so forth, and then decided to become an entrepreneur. So passions change, people change, and we underestimate how much we change as people. I still love to act, I still love cricket, but I don't aspire to make a career in cricket or in Bollywood or Hollywood or whatever. Instead, I'd love to be, exactly where I am, building stuff and writing about stuff. I still act, but as a hobby. I still play cricket, but more as a weekend activity and occasionally in Oxford. So, if you follow your curiosity, it's a much clearer indicator of your present self. And it's much more realistic about what you're interested in currently and where you're interested are leaning towards, rather than waiting, sitting under a tree, hoping for a metaphoric apple to fall on your head and you discover your passion. Passion has been unfairly romanticized. And it puts a lot of pressure on students and young professionals that if you don't somehow know what your passion is, you're missing the boat or you're doing something wrong. I think there are very, very, very few people who know from get go exactly what they want to do. I didn't, I was not that person. And now that I run a fairly large mentorship platform, I've come to realize that most people are not that people. You have to discover, you have to tinker, you have to experiment to figure out what you're all about, and then go ahead and do it. So that's the main point I make through my books and through my work. I try to, you know, decrease the pressure on people to have a passion and follow it relentlessly all the time.
Yeah, and first off, where with regards to the acting, that was an interesting anecdote because you even took acting classes at some point you mentioned in the book, no?
Yeah, I acted pretty seriously, and
Yeah.
yeah, it was. You would not call me a famous, well-known actor, but you would call me, like a reasonable actor with, reasonable success, at least in the theater world. But that's the thing. Everything doesn't need to become a career. Everything that you're interested in doesn't necessarily need to pay your bills. And you have to figure out that, as one of my friends calls it, career product market fit. I don't personally like to think of myself as a product, but just generally finding that harmony between your interest, your curiosity, your passion, what the market can pay for, and what your skills are, and combining all of them.
Exactly, precisely, because somehow everything you did along the way, the things that you pursued, even though you were not trying to monetize them, helped you one way or the other be the
Yeah,
person you are in order to leverage your skills to do whatever uh, you are curious
yeah,
about.
I
Uh,
100% think so. All of these micro adventures or micro experiments add up. In fact, when I reached out to you early on and we did a podcast on network capital about your journey of how you're trying to create, the link between the philosophy and the marketplace, you wouldn't believe it. Today, over lunch in Oxford, in the Department of Philosophy where I am, I actually spoke to a couple of really, really well-known philosophers. You might know of them about you, about how there are people who are trying to democratize philosophy and take them to the market. And I think that this trend will happen more often. I am personally really interested in seeing how people like you and maybe myself create a philosophy book for children, which can help them make sense of their careers, or perhaps look at practical ethics for business problems like blockchain, artificial intelligence, uh, and this needs to be done. uh, Market needs it, and market will also pay for it. So I'm trying to constantly look for new ideas and look for ways in which my current portfolio of skills and interests also feed into my work, feed my companies that I work at, feed my interests, and feed my friends, because I want to make everybody who comes in my orbit as successful as I possibly can. If I can open up my platform, if I can open up my network, if I can open up my company, if I can make an introduction, I'd love to do that. Some of the most successful and meaningful and rewarding things that have happened in my career in the last, say, 10 years have come from making other people successful. And then they, in turn, have become my biggest champions and have supported me and evangelized me. And we've done this and we formed this really global community of people who, don't compete with each other, but derive meaning and happiness from seeing other people succeed.
it's something. Uh, I have so many things I want to ask, but I'll let just the conversation flow because as new ideas pop up. When it comes to this, the passion economy, doing what you like, and you're trying to survive on your own, just like for example myself. Many people would think, but there are many other fish in the sea. There's so much competition. How will I be able to make it? And you're talking about creating communities that help each other, even if you're doing the same thing somehow. So maybe
Exactly.
before we discuss that, tell us a little bit more about the passion economy. Because on the one
Yeah.
hand, you're like, don't follow your passion, but then we're talking about passion economy. So
Yeah.
maybe you can tell us a little bit about that, and then we can discuss the communities that help each other out, especially as
Yeah.
uh, solopreneurs or whatever you want to call them, try to make it in this huge market.
Yeah. So I only say don't follow your passion because it's been abused quite a lot in common language. People should listen to their passion, but follow their curiosity and then work with their friends and community members to, again, figure out a mix between the market, their interests, so that they can pay their bills and have a meaningful job. And I talk about the passion economy as a really interesting phenomena, which has happened through the internet, where people are now empowered to sit in any part of the world and teach what they love, code what they love, write what they love, uh, and figure out a way to pay their bills on their own terms. It's not easy. It's actually really difficult. As you know, Mahmoud, you're one of the case studies that I talk about in my book in the Teach What You Love section. The chapter is called
Thank
Teachers
you very
Will
much,
Be,
by the way.
you deserve it. Teachers will be future millionaires. And I have conviction that, if things go well, people like yourself will be the future millionaires. And this is only happening because now people are trusting each other much more than they trust institutions. One. Second, the internet is allowing niches to scale. So something as abstruse as philosophy, you have found a market for it. You even got like really illustrious people to teach. Lots of people come to your courses, read your book. And just a few years back, it was unimaginable. You were trying to get tenured in university, and because of your innovative approaches, that particular university was not incentivizing and in fact penalizing you. So you said that let's try and build an online university where people can actually have fun learning philosophy, engaging with important concepts, and you did make it work. You, I think, would be earning 10 times what you would have been earning 3 4 years back trying to hack it in the university. What I'm not saying is that everybody should quit university and quit their jobs and start doing their own thing. However, today the internet makes room for that. It's not easy, but if you're committed to it, and if truly following your curiosity and not succumbing to mimetic desire, which I also talk about building upon philosopher Rene Girard's work, I think there is light under, at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, and see, this is kind of one of the difficult things to do, because on the one hand, you're trying to build skills, you're trying to diversify your portfolio, maybe you're trying to build a side hustle, because you do talk about side hustles as well. But then how, maybe this is a very abstract question, I know, but then how could one start monetizing their skills in a way? Like,
Yeah.
it's because it can be quite difficult, right? It's easy to say, you can start teaching online, or you can just do this or do that, or follow your curiosity. But do you have maybe some actionable tips about that, based on your journey
Yeah,
and based on all the other case studies that you've seen?
I do. So I'm going to try and cross-reference the case studies in the book and some things from my own example. If you think that anyone can do anything, that's wrong advice. Everyone cannot do everything. Everyone should not do everything. As I told you, I was, and I think I still am, pretty good at cricket. However, I should not be a cricket coach right now. I should also not be giving people advice on how to build careers in cricket. One, because I'm just not the best person to do that. And second is, um, I'm much more interested in other questions. So everyone has one or two superpowers, a few things that they truly enjoy doing, and a few things that really make them unique. For example, your superpower is to really distill ancient philosophical knowledge in a way that business people and young professionals understand and relate to. My superpower is that I truly understand the alchemy of careers, and I understand technology, and I understand community. And at the intersection of it is, what I do at Network Capital. And in the blockchain unicorn, I understand Web3, and I understand how the internet is evolving. So I know how the new digital infrastructure for the Web3 world will come to fore. So I've at least tried to, build my career at the sweet spot of my interest, my current set of skills, and things that I would do even if nobody paid me anything. If you operate in that sweet spot, things are likely to go well. And your goal should never be, how do I become a millionaire or 100 millionaire or a billionaire? Your goal should be, how do I find a small set of people who I can truly delight? And in the book, I call it the 1,000 true fans model, building upon Kevin Kelly's work. And there are people who've built on top of that as well, saying that, hey, you actually need 100 super fans. Let's not get obsessed with 100 or 1,000, but let's say you just need a small number of people. to really appreciate what you do and pay you a small amount of money for it. For example, you did publish how much money you make or you made through your courses a few months back, and that's a robust number. You did find, even for something as obscure as philosophy, people on the internet, people you hadn't met, to pay you a small amount of money in order to learn something they care about. And you made it. I'm glad that to a certain extent, many network capital people have made it, figured out how to do it, and I think this trend is going to become the dominant trend. Most people will work for themselves. Most people will have a portfolio of careers, and most people will not have a job for life. Which is why, as you were telling before we started recording, that Spain, the country where you live in currently, has allowed for a solopreneur or freelancing kind of a visa. Portugal, I believe, is following suit, and as a Web 2 to Web 3 transition happens on the internet, people will see this trend becoming mainstream. So don't look for scale in the beginning. Don't Not necessarily. Look for a small set of people that you can truly delight, and those people become your fans, your evangelists, people who are true believers in your mission. And if you keep serving them well, if your customer satisfaction index is high, your business is bound to be successful.
Yeah, quite interesting. And as you said, it only takes for one person to download your book, and there you go. It's like things eventually
Yeah,
will have some sort of ripple effect, and you would never know how opportunities arise. And one of my
yeah,
articles I wrote on my blog as well, I called it creating an opportunity, because it's also something that I was learning along the way, right? When I decided to quit university, I did it because of the economic problems, but
yeah,
that we were experiencing in Lebanon, and I didn't contemplate consciously that I wanted to start doing or teaching courses online. But then with time, through Twitter and posting things, I started realizing that it only takes, yeah, for you to publish your work out there
yeah,
and have a mentality of why not instead of why. And things just take a life of their own, and you never know how or when someone will reach out, just like you did, for example. And you're like, hey, I read your book. Let's have a chat. And and now we know each other, etc., etc. So
I would say we don't know each other. We are friends.
yeah.
I mean, before we started recording, I was telling you, the good and bad stuff in my life, and you were doing the same. So there's this is friendship. It's more than just acquaintances or anything of that. So in fact, I've had a really busy day. It started at 5:30 a.m. and
Wow.
it'll end pretty late. But doing this particular podcast was priority for me, primarily because you're a friend.
Well,
And
thank you very much,
friendships
by the way.
friendships that emerge from common interests of common curiosities, call it passion, if you will, are the ones that stand the test of time. So I really feel that we'll meet, I think, soon in Spain. Um, there will be a lot more to discuss as well.
Yeah, when we couldn't even make it back when you were in Lebanon visiting 2 years ago, I think, was it? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So Gita and I were in Vardania in her hometown, and
Yeah.
we'd called you. But there was a petrol crisis, the economic crisis, and
So many.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know you've had a very long day, so maybe we can have just a couple more questions
Oh, of course. No, no.
and
I
call
was
it a
just
day.
telling you that
Uh,
I wasn't saying that we need to wrap it up necessarily. I was just saying that you always friendship is defined when you make a person's success a priority. That's how it starts.
and this is kind of it. It has been it has become possible because of social media and the internet. It's like because it like if we end up meeting each other soon, as you said, it's as though we know each other for a long time now,
Yeah,
because this is the good things, one of the pros about social media and the internet. It's like you see the other person throughout, I don't know, we've been following each other for two and a half years, if not
yeah,
more. and you see the journey, right? And you see all the work that you've been doing, the articles, your tweets, which are actually quite interesting. I'm learning a lot, not only from your books but from your style as well. I think it's quite interesting, building the stories, making things even more interesting with the anecdotes and stuff like that. So yeah, and there's this is it's just fascinating to me because at first I was like, and this is part of what we wanted to discuss today, how social media and the internet, and you're talking about Web3, are going to be changing how we do things, how we work, etc. And I see it in action based on myself and other fellow, I don't know, digital nomads, we can call them. But then, so where do you think things are going, or how will social media actually change? Like, we can
Yeah.
say, yeah, everyone is going to be doing things on the internet, etc. But is there anything a little bit more concrete? Because you're saying people will stop having, jobs and stuff like that. But what will things look like in a few years? What do you
Okay.
think?
So let me just make sure that our listeners get a summary of what I've said so far and what I'm saying. I think everyone is not necessarily going to want to have a job on their own terms, but a large number of people will have a portfolio of careers, like a writer by day, philosopher by night, DJ in the afternoon.
Very
Um,
Marx stuff.
very Marx stuff. So people who have read Karl Marx will be happy to know that Marx makes his way in my Passion Economy book as well, because he did say that humans need to have the autonomy to really do whatever they feel like doing. But then the market is also an important force. Somebody needs to enable that, and people need to enable that for themselves. So I feel that this portfolio of careers will also become a viable choice. In 70s, 80s, 90s, maybe 2000s, it was that, oh, you need to study, you need to work, and then you retire. Now people have to have study and work interspersed throughout their life. So this is going to be one change. The second change is that people will try and find their thousand true fans on the internet. It'll be very hard. Initially, some people will make it, but over time, there will be a playbook that will emerge that some people can take references from and then customize their own journey towards, finding their financial autonomy and mastery and so forth along the way. I feel that social media and the internet has been and will be an important enabler of it. So let's look at where we are and where we're going. Web 1.0 was about advertisement as a business model. Google won that era. Yahoo came and made some ripples early on. Web 2.0 was about emergence of platforms. There was Uber delivering cabs, there were Deliveroo delivering food, and these platforms enhanced the GDP of the internet. But most of the power, most of the data was still with the platforms themselves. That made the governments, the people, slightly angsty about what will happen if there's too much power to these platforms. It will not be an equal relationship. And Web 3, which is going to be powered by decentralization and blockchain, will be about users taking control of their data and building applications that really serve their purpose. So Web 2.0, as I mentioned, did expand the opportunity landscape for lots of people like yourself. Web 3, over a period of time, will give you the ability to transform this micro company that you form into a major empire by partnering with a community that you truly relate to and leveraging the future tools that will emerge. Because the power is with you, it's decentralized, nobody owns your data, nobody can block you, nobody can ban you. If you find the product market fit, if you find the right business model, the Web 3 era and the social media platforms of tomorrow will give you the tools to build new communities, to be able to monetize them in interesting ways. So far, the only ways in which people monetize are either advertisements or subscriptions. In the Web 3 era, or as Web 2.5 era, between Web 2 and Web 3, I think you'll see a lot more interesting ways of monetization that will emerge. Not all of them will work. Some of them will be gimmicky, and some of them will fail. But isn't that how anything evolves? We can't possibly expect every experiment to deliver the result that we want. But over tens of thousands of experiments, if we get only 5 or 6 to succeed, I think as a society we would move forward, and that's the direction that we should want to take, both for the internet and for social media platforms. Decentralized, democratized, and user driven, not driven by, say, autonomy of a particular platform. I used to work for an amazing company, Microsoft, but there have been questions about Microsoft and many others about, primarily about, how do you think of power, how do you think of data, how do you think of distribution of the economic wealth that is created out of it. And the short answer is, in the current structure, it's difficult. So you will see a more structural change, that'll happen when companies like Microsoft, entrepreneurs such as you and I, policymakers really sit down and write the constitution of the new internet, a new decentralized internet. And that'll be an exciting day.
With I presume a lot of ethical questions to answer there as well, because you're mentioning power and data and what
Yeah.
we're going to be doing with it. Yeah, interesting and fascinating stuff, because it's I've over the last two during the last two talks, I had someone discuss NFTs and blockchain as well. So it kind of
Mm-hmm.
comes into what you're discussing, and I still kind of trying to wrap my head around it, because everyone was talking about communities and building trust somehow. Is this because on the one hand, and I'm trying to mix two questions here, because you're saying like don't talk to strangers somehow. We're all on the internet. That's like we trust is very important, right?
Yeah.
Is and with the platforms and web 2.0, you're saying there's a lot of issues there, etc. Is this how web 3.0 going to be helping us, just trying to build
Yeah.
trust irrespective of where the data is, because it's all decentralized and on the blockchain and
Yeah.
stuff?
So the geometry of trust is changing. Earlier, people used to trust big institutions, big corporations, big banks, and that trust is at an all-time low. Banks are collapsing, companies are defrauding, big religion is, like not being totally honest about it. So millennials and Gen Zs are really beginning to lose trust in institutions. So when I said the geometry of trust is changing, I mean that initially it used to be, you know, top down. Now it is peer to peer, people trusting each other a lot more than they trust institutions. Now, because the trust is becoming more horizontal, you need a mechanism for that to scale. So earlier, the advantage of centralization was that it's a lot more efficient, it's faster. But now people are trying to discover, is the peer to peer decentralized mechanism scalable, or is it just some utopian fantasy? Turns out that with the right application of blockchain, it is possible. Blockchain is nothing more but a mechanism for peer to peer trust to scale. Basically, how do you enable millions and billions of people to collaborate using a shared set of digital infrastructure? There are lots of interesting books being written on digital countries, digital assets, NFTs, what you have. But essentially, these questions are all about trust. Can you scale trust? And can you scale trust in a way that is fair and quantifiable and explainable? Because when you're part of a country or you're part of an ecosystem, you want to know what the rules are. And once you know what the rules are, you want to know how you can use the rules to cooperate with each other. And essentially, this entire pursuit of this Web3 movement is to figure out this macro collaboration, coordination ecosystem that will emerge, which will not be owned by one person or one company, but by a group of people. Think of it as a global macro community. If we're able to get to that stage fast, I think it'll be not only useful economically, but it might even yield a new political order, a new social order. And I think that's something people should be excited by.
Yeah, will this social order be more individual based or community based, you think? Or is it going to be like some sort of mixture of both? Like how important are communities for you? You're building one. I know, but I
Yeah,
mean it's important. You're
communities are
seeing, yeah.
everything. communities are everything. And even in the Web 3.0 era, I talk about it in my book. Communities are going to be the essence of how new economic and social models will get formed. There is something called a DAO, which is a decentralized autonomous organization, which is basically a version of saying a community with a set of digital rules that learns to operate, set its own structures, and exist in a certain way. But for a community to operate, individuals also need to do their bit. They can't expect things to be handed out to them unless they are in absolute need. So, imagine an ideal country where people coordinate with each other, collaborate with each other, and also do their bit to succeed. And if for whatever reason, structural reasons or otherwise, some people or some set of people are not able to make it, then the society comes forward and collectively supports them, nudges them, and helps them out. Because you don't want a society which is, so cutthroat that only the most efficient and the most intelligent and the most beautiful survive. You want to try and create the Rawlsian dream, which is trying to create a relatively equal playing field for everybody. And the veil of ignorance, you and I don't want to get too philosophical, but again, the idea is to create equality of opportunities for everyone and a support structure for those who can't necessarily hack it by themselves for reasons beyond their control.
Yeah, and kind of this is where things can be quite helpful, because you also talk about the relationship, like having your own mentors of some sort, and
Yeah.
within a community it can be even easier because you know the people, you trust them, and you know that they're going to be helping you because they want what is good for you. And so you can be a mentor, a coach, and a mentee at the same time, no?
Yeah.
How important is
Every
that, the relationship, like finding your mentor somehow?
Finding your tribe of mentors. I basically try and learn from as diverse set of people as possible, and I try to connect with and teach as diverse set of people as possible. So building this relationship needs three things. One, it cannot be transactional. It needs to be relationship oriented. Second is that typically a mentor and a mentee, the space can change, the time can change. There's so many people who used to mentor me now reach out to me for advice, and vice versa. So that can only happen if you're constantly committed to adding value to another person, no matter who he or she is. And the third is that this mentor-mentee relationship is, premised on trying to expand the pie for everybody, not only for the two set of people or three set of people involved, but for the entire ecosystem. Because right now, uh, a lot of us come from the point of view is that if I get something or if he gets something, I won't. And I come from the point of view that right now the pie is too small. So let's grow it and then distribute it rather than worry about who gets what. So it's a relationship that needs to be nurtured over years of doing your bit and not expecting too much, showing up with the right spirit.
Yeah. And how important is networking in this case? And what would be a good advice, like what good networking versus bad networking, right?
Hmm.
Because network,
So
and I myself have also, you know, become aware of this. You'd go to the conferences as an academic, etc., and you'd think you're networking, you're getting to know people, etc., but it just leads nowhere. Not because you're expecting anything, but it's not as interesting. So yeah.
um, many people think that the name of my company is Network Capital, so I must be networking a lot. And that's not true at all. I spend most of my time reading and thinking and doing, building. Almost all of my time is spent in that, or with friends and family. So friends and family are really important. I spend quality time with them. I have fun with them. I enjoy myself that way. And for other times, I work or I study or I think. So the way I connect with people is ideas. So, you and I connected on, our shared interest in philosophy and marketplaces and the internet. And that relationship is a strong one. If I ask you for something at the middle of the night, you will be there, and vice versa. Um, and I think that's something that people miss. People feel that just like randomly connecting with people yields anything. No, people are interested if you engage with the ideas that you care about and they care about. And you don't need to agree with everybody. You don't even need to agree with what the other person is saying. On Network Capital, we've hosted Democrats, Republicans in various countries or the equivalent version of that. And a lot of them enjoy being on Network Capital and teaching what they love, sharing what they love, because this is perhaps the only platform they can have substantive conversations. And they don't have to worry about sound bites and getting quoted out of context and so forth. So my advice to people would be that engage with others on ideas. Just random exchange of business cards, or just like, let me send you an email, let's connect. I don't do all of that. I've never done that. And I don't do that. What I do is I read and I think and I know what to say when to who, because my goal is to add value to them. And if something comes to me on the process, fine. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah, it's uh, it's quite interesting because you're connecting based on ideas and interests. And I don't think it's because I was having this discussion with someone yesterday about how Twitter has allowed me to connect with so many people with whom I share the same ideas. And he was like, yeah, but you're creating your own echo chamber. And I'm like, no, because it's not, I'm not only, as you said, connecting and communicating with people who agree with me politically, because I don't even care about that. I'm connecting with people who are on the same wavelength as myself, who are interested
Yeah.
and who are curious about things, who are just trying to learn, right? And really trying to figure things out. And my question in this case is like, why, in your case, why philosophy? That's
Primarily because it's it's something that everyone should know and everyone should care about, but it's unfortunately not given the seriousness it deserves. I was just again like over lunch, with my professors, we were just chatting, and I was saying that business, like I lead two companies, two large companies, and I write. So life's busy, but also life changes too fast, moment to moment. I literally next week, which country I will be in, it's uncertain right now. You need a grounding
Spain.
in principles. Yes, fingers crossed. You need a grounding. You really need to know where you come from, where society is evolving. What are some important questions? What are the ethical implications of that? To sort of balance the excessive change that is happening all around. I love the change, I embrace the change, but I also like to hold on to fundamental questions and try and find the balance on it. It also is something that very, very, very few people would think they do, but actually there is precedence of that. A lot of very successful entrepreneurs are philosophy graduates. Reid Hoffman actually studied philosophy at Oxford, in my own department. So, and the example of liberal arts majors doing really well, in business and so forth is documented. However, why should everything be utilitarian? Some things should just be pursued because they are important to being a fully functional, reasonable human being. Um, I have had success in my business life, but even if I didn't, I would have still studied philosophy.
And here I'm going to be even a little bit more selfish. I'll tell you why afterwards. But given that we're discussing this now, how does philosophy concretely, if at all, help you in your businesses, maybe at a leadership level, at a
Yeah.
strategic level? Does philosophy help?
Of course, Web3, when I was describing the equality of opportunity conundrum, that's basically John Rawls. When you're trying to create a fairer, more decentralized internet, you're basically trying to create an ecosystem where the first movers don't necessarily have the biggest advantage. They have some advantage, but not an advantage that can never be mitigated. You want essentially for the participants to be able to engage on fair terms. So fairness, again, philosophical beneficence, as we call it in philosophy. These are concepts that are very important in business and philosophy. Your diversity and inclusion policy in your workplace, that cannot be a function of random outrage or like people tweeting a whole lot. There has to be a philosophical grounding on it, even if you disagree with it. So for for all of these things, essentially, philosophy, if studied well with the right set of teachers, um, on the internet as well, as my friend Decaf Quest says, it'll just enhance your critical thinking skill. It'll push you in ways that will be uncomfortable. And by engaging in morality in ways that are counterintuitive, people actually ask or end up asking and answering questions that they most fear answering or engaging with.
And a little bit on leadership and philosophy. Would you have anything to say on that? Uh,
Of
how
course,
did it help you as
yeah.
a leader?
Stoicism is becoming really popular among tech entrepreneurs, and Stoic philosophy is again like one philosophy of leading life. But there is Epicureanism as well. There are lots of different ways or schools of thought that exist, and what many of them teach is an operating principle for taking decisions. So this decision making framework, once people know that it's historically backed up, people have been engaging in these kinds of things for a while, they have a lot more confidence for it to work. So by studying Shakespeare, I mean, that's not strictly philosophy, but there are
That's
philosophical
interesting.
elements in it. By studying, Stoic philosophy, Epicureanism, by engaging with, the likes of Karl Marx and Adam Smith, and of course, even the more contemporary philosophers like Parfait and René Girard, right? Two completely different individuals. But Girardian philosophy of mimetic desire is essential to understanding Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, etc., because it enables us to see how competition begins. And when competition begins, how we become a lot like each other than becoming truly differentiated. And the more alike we become, the more we compete. And he draws upon the Cain and Abel story from Bible. Then this interconnectedness, again, you should know as a leader, because you will see this in your workplace, because the same people who work for you also engage with each other on social media, and they're also people who are in the process of trying to be different while becoming more homogenous every day. And this juxtaposition is helpful if you have a philosophical lens as well.
Yeah, this is very interesting. I mean, I would spend a lot more time on René Girard, but I'll leave it at that. And yeah, thank you very much. Maybe I don't know any other thing you'd like to share about your new book, like the Passion Economy. The book, by the way, is going to be published next week, if I'm not mistaken. You
Yeah,
said
on
the 20th. Yeah.
20th, Penguin is publishing it. So initially the book was published by Sage, but then Penguin bought the rights from Sage and they are publishing it, which I'm really excited by. It's a book that I wrote in the pandemic, and it's a book that was not super easy to write because every other day something new would happen in the world of tech, in the world of internet, blockchain, people doing interesting things, platforms coming, platforms going. And I tried to synthesize all of it by keeping it current, but again, grounding it in principles that I think will be true even decades from now. So if people are looking to unbundle their work from employment, build a portfolio of careers, and have a meaningful job in the long term, I think they'll enjoy it. They'll also enjoy it, hopefully, because the book is not like painting a false utopia or something. It's telling them that there will be practical challenges and difficulties to navigate in the process. But that's okay as long as you're genuinely curious about the field that you're engaging in. If you're doing it for the wrong reasons, if you're doing it because your neighbor did it, it's going to be pretty painful.
Yeah, it's not so much about um how you're going to be successful. And these are 3 tips for you to become
Yeah,
a successful digital nomad or solopreneur. It's more about things are changing. The panorama is changing. The pandemic is one huge example of that. It's like there's the pre-pandemic era and the post-pandemic era, and we have to adapt. And so I think I see your book as a call for everyone to just take a step back and reconsider things. Like as you said, it's not about quitting your career, because you do talk about this in your first book, The
yeah,
Seductive Illusion of Hard Work. It's like, don't jump, don't rush it, and don't follow your passion in the sense that, yeah, I'm gonna quit and tomorrow I'm going to do all my stuff. No, 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 just, but then we have to, from what I gathered, right, and based on my experience, because it does resonate a lot, just remember that your career is can end up in seconds. It's like, just because, now with tech layoffs and stuff like that, it's like
yeah,
some people did not even, it's as though they didn't even expect that. But if you have a
yeah.
side hustle ongoing.
And more is coming, Rasmi. A lot more layoffs are coming, and but I hope that people are safe. If they lose their job, they can of course reach out to networkcapital.tv, or me personally. I'll do my best to help anyone who's listening to Decaf Quest or is on Network Capital, or just anyone in need of help.
Yeah, that's actually quite nice. And yeah, the idea is to just have everyone start thinking about all the other possibilities that
Yeah.
might open up if you jump on the internet. So yeah, thank you very much. Any uh last uh tips, suggestions you'd like to share with us before we call it a day?
Start tinkering today. The job that you will be doing tomorrow, 5 years from now, will not look like what it is today. Second, try and make your first dollar on the internet. Once you do that, try and make your next dollar. Get to $100, get to $1,000. That's the hardest part. Once you pass that threshold, your new career is waiting for you. It can be a side hustle, it can be your main gig. You decide. And third, don't take a big decision on a bad day. There will be many days in the coming months and years that will be difficult to navigate. Don't take something dramatic, good or bad, in one direction. Give yourself the thought, give yourself the mental clarity that you need, and then take a big decision.
And I think that last one is quite important. And it happens to me on a daily basis. I'm like, no, I'm gonna just stop doing this, or I'm gonna quit doing that. And then I take a step back and think with mental clarity, and then I'm like, okay, maybe I'll give it a few more weeks, etc., etc. But yeah, thank you very much, Utkarsh, for this. This has been really interesting, at least for me. I read your first book. I started your second book, but then the seductive illusion of hard work was really interesting. I would urge everyone to check it out. And the new book, which is going to be published next week. It's very interesting as well. I've read bits and pieces there, The Passion Economy. And where can people find you?
They can find me on Twitter and LinkedIn. On Twitter, it's Utkarsh_Amitabh. And on LinkedIn, they can just search my name, Utkarsh Amitabh. And yeah, Mahmoud Rasmi will be a common connection, so they can add up.
Yeah, thank you very much. And good luck on your future endeavors. And hope we can meet soon somewhere in Madrid or Salamanca or anywhere in Spain. That would be nice.
I know that we will very soon. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you very
Bye.
much.